So it's April 7th at the time of recording this, which means it's been about a week since the 5-year anniversary of the passing of Nipsey Hussle. So for this video, I just want to, of course, send condolences to Nip Hussle. He's a big inspiration of mine, and I want to go over after 5 years of him being gone. What are a few things that we can take away that either he directly tried to teach people prior to his passing through his music and interviews and whatnot, and other things that maybe I just personally picked up, just as a fan of his since back in the day, since Hustle in the House, 106 and Park back in the day, right? So after 5 years of Nip being gone, what are some things that we can take away and apply to our lives now? Before we get into this, let's go ahead and give a quick summary of who Nip Hussle was, and we'll go from there. We'll build on this from there. So Nipsey Hussle, Nip Hussle, or Ermias Asghedom, was an American-born rapper, businessman, and entrepreneur, mainly known for his membership of the Rolling 60s Crips in South Central LA or South LA. Nip's hustle, in my opinion, is a pretty great one, but the basics of it is that when he and his older brother, Black Sam, were younger, they were always trying to, hustle, get money, and get businesses going and things like that. Part of this, of course, their socioeconomic conditions, being in South LA, but also his father was a refugee that he left Eritrea. He and his family are all Eritrean or of Eritrean descent. So his father was Eritrean and left Eritrea, came over to the States to flee the Eritrean War of Independence at the time. He said that his father, when he was about 18, 19, his father took he took him and his older brother Black Sam back home to Eritrea so that they can see their essentially motherland. They can see their motherland, where they came from, where his father came from, as well as to get an idea of the culture and of the people there. And Nip said that was a positive influence for him and completely changed how he addressed people in general, how he addressed women, and how he just went about handling business. Speaking of business, Nip, of course, mainly being known as a rapper, over the course of his career, released 14 mixtapes, 3 compilation projects, you can say mixtapes, and unfortunately only managed to release 1 studio album, Victory Lap, by the time of his passing, which real Nip Hussle fans from back in the day know Victory Lap, that was like a decade-long wait. It was still good to keep getting music from him. We still got extra laps, mailbox money, some of the other mixtapes, but it definitely didn't disappoint, which granted, unfortunately, a good amount of support did come as a result of his passing, but the album did manage to peak at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. So basically it became the number 2 selling album in the country at the time. Now, I already said Nip was a businessman and an entrepreneur as well as an activist. The peak example of his business and his success at the time was the Marathon store. The Marathon was his brand. It was his whole thing. I would say the 2 main brands that still survive, like even to this day, All Money In, No Money Out, and the Marathon. But the whole thing with the Marathon, and the reason he gave the brand that name, was because life is a marathon. Whatever endeavor that you are pursuing, it's never just done. It's an ongoing thing, right? And he was the type that, I don't know if I necessarily want to say he liked to take things slow, but in his own words in an interview, he said he definitely took the stairs when it came to his career's progression, because he did a lot of things independently before he went major. He did try a major deal at one point and it just fell through. It was not good. And then he had other opportunities to sign in major labels, but he kept learning. People like 50 Cent and other people, as well as just his own research and studying, was coming across information that led to him doing things by himself before he eventually landed a deal. I believe it was with Atlantic before he passed. And even by that time, it wasn't quite a traditional record deal. It was more of a partnership because he had already built his own brand, mainly the Marathon. Nip was also a big proponent of investing into yourself, but also literally investing your money for short and long-term benefit. Not only for yourself, but for the benefit of other people. So Nip, being an activist, was very big on his community, South LA, which is a disenfranchised area. It's one of those areas where, we know people are there. There's a lot of money there. There's a lot of opportunity there, but there's also a lot of gangbanging and a bunch of other stuff. And he knew what it felt like to be kind of just in the world as a young man, as a little boy, that's surrounded by all this stuff. And when left unattended, you get pulled into this. And when you get pulled into certain behaviors and certain activities, you're automatically written off as a bad person, detriment to society, things like that. So for Nip, as someone that initially would have been thrown under that category, under that stereotype, he knew that once he built himself up to a certain level, that it only would take people that from that community, people who understood how that area ran, why people did the things that they did. He knew that he had to be that person for Crenshaw and Slauson to invest back into that neighborhood because no one else was going to do it. And that's what the Marathon store was for. The Marathon store, which I believe is still open in LA, became and still is essentially kind of like a community center. You know, it's a clothing store, it sells music, sells clothes, accessories, and whatnot. It allowed a certain level of representation and protection for the people that lived in the Crenshaw and Slauson area because the shopping center that the Marathon store is in, Nip bought it at one point because some of the other people, there was one other tenant, I believe he owns a restaurant. There was one other tenant in particular that apparently growing up, he wouldn't allow people to sit and eat their food. You know, they had to get away, you know, because he didn't want to keep certain people around out of the possibility that there would essentially be trouble. And Nip didn't like that. So after all those years of working, building himself up, building up the brand, things like that, he eventually bought that same shopping center, put his own store there, but also was now getting money from that same guy that would not allow the locals to sit and actually enjoy their food and enjoy the experience, even though they were members of that community. He didn't like that. So his store and him purchasing and investing into Crenshaw by running that shopping center and making it okay for people to have gatherings, borderline kind of like car shows, because LA does have a car culture to it. He was able to dictate that now. He was able to allow that and allowed it to be an escape, not only for, of course, you got gang members and whatnot, but just other people. He even went so far as to try to establish a connection and relationship publicly with LAPD so that when it came to crimes relating to gang activity, there would be different avenues and different options on how to navigate that, right? But unfortunately, it didn't get far due to his demise. Last example, Vector 90, which unfortunately, to my understanding, when I looked it up and did a little bit of research, it does not seem to be running anymore. But Vector 90 was Nip's attempt to establish another kind of like community center, specifically for people that wanted to get into STEM so that they had the resources and a safe space to study how to become engineers and developers, architects, and other things like that, as well as to bring in other high earning Black folks from the rap community and other connections that he had to be positive influences and examples for those young men and women who, coming from that type of environment, it's not exactly encouraged. And even if it's encouraged to go into STEM, if an individual is encouraged, they don't necessarily have the means to do it. So Vector 90 was supposed to be the solution to that, where people had a safe space. They were able to play around, they could connect with other people, you know, network and all that other stuff, so that the little homies in that environment would have the opportunity to dabble into something that could take them into Silicon Valley, which you can make great money being an engineer and all the like, and you don't even need to go to college, which is another reason why he did it, because he knew that college for certain lines of work was just not necessary. And if some of the people founding these major tech companies and consulting firms were high school dropouts or high school graduates at best, then there's no reason why someone can't learn the code for free if they had the means and a safe space to do it. And that was his investment towards community, Vector 90. With all that said, here are the three main things that we can take away from each of the things that we went over so far. One, invest in yourself and in your community. Invest in yourself for obvious reasons. If you want to be the type of person that wants to pour into someone else's cup, you need to take care of yourself first. That actually needs to be taught, because we hear the word selfish and we think that's inherently a bad thing and that our character is just trash at that point. Someone calls you selfish. As someone that's going to knock on 30 in less than a couple of years, let me tell you, if someone was to call me selfish, I would take that as a compliment. Not because I don't do anything for anybody when I can, not that I don't want to take care of my people and the people who have invested in me up till now and probably will continue to do so throughout the rest of my life, but because I've come to understand, even when it comes to my own personal endeavors, I can only push myself so much before my actual health and other things start to deteriorate, before I start to hurt myself, right? And something that can lead to you hurting yourself is you trying to constantly help other people and not making it a point to prioritize yourself and be like, you know what, dude, I'm going to sleep. I don't want to be bothered. You keep getting into whatever trouble. The next time I hear about XYZ, don't even bother calling me, dude, because like you're taking away from my health. I'm sacrificing sleep, time with family, where the case is. I'm not taking care of me because I'm constantly trying to take care of you. And I can't take care of someone else and making sure their cup is full when I'm constantly empty. It literally does not work. So yes, invest in yourself. Don't be like a butthead about it, but make it a point to draw those boundaries early on in your life to say, you know what? Not today, dude. I'm doing my own thing. I'm sleeping. I'm working on my projects, whatever the case is. I'm taking care of me. Maybe next time we can connect and do something, right? With that said, going on into investing in your community, he did this in two versions. He did this with Vector 90 and with the marathon because, of course, he wanted to be rich. He was rich, wanted to take care of himself and his own family, Lauren London, his kids. So, of course, he had to do that. But he, again, was still a staple in that community because he made it a point to show love and respect and care for everyone around him that came from the same environment he came from. So, or at least, prior to Vector 90 closing down primarily, it was meant as a place that people they knew they could go to. They knew they can go to certain places that he was a part of because it would provide safety, it would provide camaraderie. As long as you respect everyone and you was cool, nothing would happen. There would be no reason. Then when it came to the youth, which was another big thing to him, was investing in them because they're going to be the future. So you can't just take care of whatever is in the here and now and not worry about them and constantly tell them to stay in a child's place, and you don't invest in them. You don't help mold their mind. You don't try to give them a space to dabble in certain things so that they can find out like how possible certain opportunities are, right? So invest in yourself, take care of yourself, but then also on the other side of that coin, invest in your community, take care of other people. But Nip wouldn't have been able to take care of other people if he hadn't taken care of himself first. So go ahead, make your money, do your thing. But if you're the type of person that makes a choice to invest into other people, clear up some of the stuff that's happening in your neighborhood, just anyone that crosses your path, understand that it's best to do that after you've taken care of yourself and you've gotten to a point where you genuinely feel comfortable and have the ability to do that. Two, keep a pulse on the world. Keep a pulse or keep your ear to the streets when it comes to developing trends and things that can lead to you being successful or having new connections, new opportunities down the line. Cryptocurrency was something that Nip was into when it came to investing his money. And he talked about it. I believe it was somewhere in Europe. I don't want to say Germany, but there's an interview on YouTube where he was somewhere in Europe and he was in a city that he said was running completely, or at least had the ability to run completely off of cryptocurrency. And with him seeing that trend early on, was going to put some money into that so that of course it will pay dividends for him. But he was again sharing that information blatantly for other people. I don't think I've heard any other rappers or people that vein talk about it the way he did and actually make it a point to share that information. By the time that information became mainstream, you were hearing it from other cryptocurrency millionaires and whatnot that had been doing it for years. They most likely had other information. And it essentially kind of plays on that logic, or at least the logic I have, that by the time we hear about something in droves from multiple people, especially like you can make money and this and that, chances are it's too late. Not that you can't get money out of it, but like whatever made it easier for them, or whatever made it like the hot new thing, like it was rare, nobody knew about it. So they were dabbling, they were succeeding, they were failing, they were fixing it, they went back, and there were maybe a handful of people doing it compared to once it blew up and now everyone's trying to do it, everybody's asking the same questions, stuff like that. So that's not to say that the money make opportunity and the opportunity itself is completely gone. More so that it's probably going to be harder to again stick out in that crowd and to get some motion with it because now everyone's on it, whereas before nobody was. He was trying to push that information to people that followed him, people that paid attention, and let them know like this is the future, this is what we're heading towards. Cryptocurrency is a thing, it's here, and it's best that we get on it sooner than later. Which brings us to our last point: be proactive in not only investing in yourself, but being proactive when it comes to being an asset to the people around you in your community, and most importantly, the next generation, which is the big thing for me. I actually was very surprised. I don't think Vector 90 was publicized like that. Nip investing in the next generation and trying to provide the means and a safe space for kids to figure out their passions, figure out what's the type of skills and things that runs the world, what can get them to Silicon Valley, whether they want to go to college or not, and him actually carving out a physical space that allowed primarily young minority kids, Black, Latino, and whatever, and everyone else to dabble in the technology that either at home they couldn't afford it, or maybe it was not encouraged by certain social circles, bullies at school, other people, being a nerd, you always get picked on, or we used to back in the day. So, there are just certain things that weren't encouraged, and we not only were limited by the circumstances and people around us, we allowed ourselves to be limited, but also we would limit ourselves because we wanted to be seen in a certain type of way. And Nip, that was just something he did not want to be a part of. So him being proactive and investing in himself, being proactive in investing in his community, but most importantly, in my opinion, being proactive about investing in the next generation and getting ahead of the curve so that while he has the vision of what is driving the world now, what's making the most money now, how do people get there, and bring that information back and creating a space to where the little homies, before they're even the age of 10, preteen, teenagers, whatever, can get their hands on that, get caught up with the current trend, and by the time they're older, they're not only caught up, they may even surpass what's going on in the world. They can become influential in their own right. Those are the three main things that I think, when it comes to what we talked about in this video, that Nip did very well when it came to, leaving that legacy behind and things that we can take away from the information he tried to spread and share with us. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this video here. Rest in peace, Neighborhood Nip. If you got any feedback for me, go ahead and share that with me in the comment section below. I'll see y'all in the next one. Later.